um, excuse me, that notifies that recording will begin. So let me start the recording. Okay, great. I think James started that for me. Thank you very much. So that stated, this is the join information, which everyone should have. And again, our title slide. So for the record, again, this is the Mayor's Bicycle Advisory Commission meeting. The date today is October 25th. Today's agenda is obviously we'll do a general welcome and introductions of all the commissioners that are online. We'll do some commission administration. We'll talk about community events, and we'll talk about, or we'll have different agencies present what is new and going on their end. And then we'll pop into the bulk of what most folks are here to hear about, the project updates. We'll then open the floor to other topics and conversation. And after that, we'll close. So with that stated, any of my co-hosts, Eli, Alan, Sean, James, are there any questions that you folks have?
No questions today, but I do want to thank everyone for taking time to join us this evening. I just want to remind folks that this evening's presentation is a report out of the projects that have already been approved, and the status of each of those projects. Will be engaged in conversation around what resources may be needed to help push this a little bit further. But that is the discussion that we will be having today. I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that there is a council hearing tomorrow at 5 p.m. at City Hall, and it will also be streamed live on Shark TV to discuss the entire Complete Streets program. So if you have interest or concerns, or you want to be an advocate for the Complete Streets program, please make sure that you are able to attend that meeting tomorrow. That will be a great opportunity for you to share your thoughts on that as the council looks to make decisions on the law that has been already enacted. But with that, we'll go ahead and jump into our agenda for today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alan. Yes, so ironically, that is why I am all over the place preparing information for that. So for today, however, we need to go ahead and approve, or at least get a motion to approve our agenda minutes. So let me see.
Before we start with that bit of business, Patrick, could we get all of the commissioners to just sort of like introduce themselves, at least in the chat,
yes.
so folks know who's here?
Yes, thank you, Eli. Very important. Introductions. Thank you, Eli. Any commissioners that are here, please. Eli, you said you wanted them to just kind of respond so in the chat, or that you want them to vocalize?
I guess if folks can unmute themselves, then we can do it that way. But I can go first. My name's Eli Poussin. I'm the commission representative for the Department of Planning.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Patrick Patterson, lead bike planner and bicycle planning and programming representative for the Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lakeisha Henderson. I'm calling in on the phone, and I am a commissioner as well.
Hello, everyone. Daniel Knopp. I'm calling in. How's everyone doing?
Thanks, Dan.
Mr. Casual, as always. Well, thank you, everyone. It is a really great opportunity to have you all here. We do want to, I think it's probably worth mentioning that commissioners that do not work for the city are volunteers. So we thank you for your time, and we thank you for your expertise in providing this.
Maybe a few more folks who didn't go yet, Patrick.
Oh, yeah? Okay, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so from the mayor's office, I want to go ahead and introduce myself for the record. My name is Alan Robinson. I'm the Assistant City Administrator for Operations. I am here to support as a mayoral representative.
And my name is Sean Burnett. I'm the Assistant Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, and I'm here to do a similar thing now.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, how can I forget our guest from the mayor's office of all folks? So, Eli, thank you for that grace. Yes, sir.
Or even still a couple more commissioners who haven't had a chance to introduce themselves yet.
Oh.
I
So
think,
for those
let me,
commissioners who have not introduced themselves, please raise your hand so that we can make sure we acknowledge you and give you the opportunity to do so. And if you're on the phone, go ahead and begin speaking if you can. So I am not, from my end, Eli, seeing any additional hands.
I'm
Hi,
guessing
this is
that
Jay O'Connor.
anyone who, oh, please go ahead.
I'm
Right,
sorry.
so we will
Yeah,
go ahead and
this is
move
Jay
forward.
O'Connor.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Someone was speaking on the phone. Go ahead, sir. Treat that again.
Yeah, this is Jay O'Connor. I a lot of time no see participant, just a concern for the community, kind of help out the city do the bicycle planning.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate you joining the meeting right now. So it sounds like we have all of the commissioners who were a part of this group have already introduced themselves. So we will go ahead and move forward with the administration.
Okay, fantastic. Eli, can you go ahead and make a motion to approve August 30th meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the August meeting minutes. Is there a
I'll
second?
go ahead and second that movement.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Meeting minutes for August 30th, 2023 are approved. If you would like to see those are posted online on the NBAC website. Excuse me. Second matter of business is the December 27th, 2023 meeting. As everyone knows, this commission used to meet monthly. We now meet bi-monthly, which would then take us to December 27th of this year. That is 2 days after Christmas. I doubt many people will be here. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion that we reschedule the meeting to the first month or the last Wednesday of January. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Right, the motion passes. So we'll update the meeting schedule on the NBAC website, and we'll make sure to update the WebEx and different invitations for everyone in the future. So,
Excuse me. I know I'm not part of your group here, but I'd like to oppose it.
I'm sorry, Ms. Worthing, you're not a commissioner. So unfortunately, while that is warranted, I appreciate it. You actually can't oppose it.
Can I oppose it?
No, ma'am. What I'm going to do is actually put you on mute. But I do appreciate your feedback. But this is the votes, and the way that the voting works is that it's for the commissioners who have been appointed by the mayor's office, and also the city representative who are appointed by their department directors.
Okay, but just note, I oppose it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Let's see. All right, next we have community events. Eli, do you mind speaking a little bit about these?
No, I'm happy to briefly talk through these events, but also wanted to just I know we've got a couple of folks who are working on these events on the call, so would encourage folks to kind of share details in the chat, or we'll pause to sort of come off so folks can come off mute and share more information about any of the events that we have listed under the community events slide here. So I know that the sort of seasonal mobile bike shop that Bike More runs is going to be, I think, sort of maybe winding down for the season. The last sort of like public event that's listed right now is October 26th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Druid Hill Park. The Baltimore Bike Party at the end of the month, the October folks may know already, but if anyone's new to Baltimore, the October Bike Party is actually the largest bike party event that takes place during the year and really has some fantastic costumes. And so a great chance to get to ride around the city. There's a sort of social bike breakfast event that Bikemore is hosting right around the corner from their offices on November 3rd, followed by a Bikemore fundraiser on November 18th at Charm City Meatworks, their sort of annual Cranksgiving event that is both a fundraiser for oh my goodness, I'm terrible to forget the nonprofit organization, but I'm hoping that Jed can sort of like fill in a few details on that in just a moment. Black People Ride Bikes have an event coming up on let's see, is that I wonder if the details for that one got added in a little bit in error, just since it's sort of like same as the details for the mobile bike shop. I didn't add that one in, so I guess if Patrick, if you or anyone else sort of has more details on that, then we might just want to double check
Good
that
afternoon,
information.
everyone. This is
Yeah,
Nia
thank you.
Reed Jones. I don't know if you all can hear me, but we
We can,
actually
please
have
go ahead.
postponed our rides for the rest of the year. We will be doing some indoor programming coming up and doing some, trainer type activities. But right now, we are not leading that ride. But one thing I would say that probably should be added to this, Rails to Trails and AIA will be having a ride this next Saturday. I want to say it's November 4th. They will be leading a ride starting at 9:30, and it will be leaving out of Fells Point. I can share some of the additional information with you all via email if you'd like. But we partner with Rails to Trails on that ride.
That sounds great. Uh, I know there's some additional details provided for a bike tour that the Neighborhood Design Center is organizing on November 11th, and the Federal Hill Trek has a Fix a Flat clinic on October 26th. I guess I know, Jed, if you're on, would you mind sharing any additional details about Bikemore's upcoming events for the sort of general good?
Yeah, sure. So the bike breakfast we may or may not do. It's sort of depending on how cold it is outside. But if we aren't doing it, we'll do a happy hour that month and sort of kick off some happy hours inside going through the winter months. Cranksgiving is like one of our largest events. I think we had almost 300 riders last year, or maybe it was over 300. And this is it's basically you team up with a team of 3 or 4 folks. You get a manifest that has a bunch of grocery stores on it, and you ride around and you collect food on that manifest, and then you deliver it to either Movable Feast or the Franciscan Center, which are our food partners. So it's a really great event. It's a fundraiser for Bikemore. It delivers food for people in need to the Franciscan Center and Movable Feast. There's prizes for people who win. There's prizes for people who come in dead last. There's prizes for families that ride. And so I put a link in the chat, but definitely encourage people to join. There is a cost for the early bird registration through Friday. That gives you a t-shirt though. And then after that, general registration starts and it is free up until just a day or two before the event. So any questions, feel free to toss me an email, but the link's in the chat as well.
And I know I also wasn't the person to add the Neighborhood Design Center Bike the Sites event. Do we have a link for that, Patrick? If that was something that you were.
Yeah, I don't have a link. This was these last minute additions were actually put together by our junior bike planner, who's not here. But when he comes back, I'll make sure to drop those off in the chat. But he took some awesome time to really put some more shine on different communities and different organizations that are putting things on. In regards to those details that are incorrect, our apologies, Nia. we'll make sure that that won't happen again in the future. But as for other organizations and needed links so that you can check them out, I'll have John drop that information in the chat.
Are there any other meeting participants who have upcoming sort of bike-related events that they would like to share at this time? If not, then I'll hand it back over, Patrick, to you and to Alan to sort of keep us going through the agenda.
Thank you, Eli.
Oh, so they did figure they cleaned that out.
What did you say, Eric?
Eric might have been unmuted by mistake. I
think he might have unmuted by mistake. So we'll go ahead and move forward.
Okay. All right. So next slide is actually going to be agency updates. And well, first up that we have is actually recreation parks. Last month, or I guess 2 months ago, we had Kenny of Rec and Parks introduce himself to us all, and I believe that we wanted to bring him back for another update to what's been going on with the trails around the city, most notably the tree that fell down on the Gwynns Falls Trail. So at this time, I'm actually going to go ahead and unmute Kenny. If not, you can actually unmute yourselves. Go ahead and go off, Kenny. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, like they said, I'm Kenny Perry. I'm the new trail naturalist for Rec and Parks. So I started in mid-August and have really been trying to. Oh, sorry, I do have a pet bird, so apologies if you hear him in the background. But so since starting at Rec and Parks, I've been doing my best to get through some of the outstanding down tree requests. So the majority of which were at Gwynn Falls Lake and Park. So with the forestry crew and the division crew with the Gwynn Falls Lake and Park, we were able to remove some of the real troublesome trees that I couldn't handle alone. So that was the big thing on the Gwynn Falls front. We do have some upcoming trail improvements for the Gwynn Falls. So you might see some of our contractors out and about doing they're starting with some surveying, some tree pruning, and then they're going to be doing some minor resurfacing repairs, some bridge repairs. So a lot of these things that are just kind of needed to happen are going to be happening over the next couple months. So I think there's an estimated time of completion for April 2024 for this first kind of big push of trail improvements. So looking forward to seeing that. What else? I think, sorry, I don't know if I can see the presentation anymore, but I think I have Herring Run. I don't know if we have any regular Herring Run cyclists here, but we do have some erosion issues on Herring Run that are ongoing after September's large flood event. So it's currently a trail closure between the Hall Spring entrance and the pedestrian footbridge that is closed to cyclists and pedestrian traffic. But the emergency repairs, surveying for those repairs are ongoing. And as of now, I don't have a date to release, but the surveying is happening, and we'll hopefully have some emergency repairs as soon as possible. Get that trail open for you guys. Also, yeah, some sandy deposits that will hopefully be taken care of in the next couple of weeks on Herring Run. And then Jones Falls doesn't need a ton of work, unless it does. Always drop me a 311 request if you need it. But just did some pruning, and then the boardwalk fence near the Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital. The quote for those fence repairs has been submitted, so hopefully repairs upcoming as well. So I think those are the big things. But I think on the next slide I have a little before and after. Yeah, so you can all see it was a huge team effort to get this giant oak, and then it took down a few other trees with it. I'm sure you all saw it and or climbed over it, but I appreciate the patience with getting this resolved and the team effort that it took to get the equipment up there and take care of it. So I will need to rebuild the fence up there or get some contractors out to rebuild that fence. But so proceed with caution. But it is now clear to pedestrian and cyclist traffic. So thank you all. And I think maybe one more little note about on the next slide about we are hiring for a second trail naturalist. So I will hopefully, be able to increase our capacity to address these issues as they come up. Interviews are scheduled hopefully for the next couple weeks. And then hopefully by the end of the year, and if not earlier, I will have a second trail naturalist partner. But other than that, I just wanted to yeah, you could join me out there on the trail and look fashionable in these chainsaw chaps with me. So send the word out for new trail naturalist hiring. But other than that, my only note is if you encounter any issues on the trails, please drop a 311 request, and those will come directly to me, and I'll address them as they come up. We have a weekly SR meetings where I receive those requests. So I really rely on, since it's just me, I rely on the help of the community. So thank you all for being the eyes and ears out there. But yeah, stay safe on the trails, and hopefully if you run into me, please say hello. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. That was wonderful. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to get some chainsaw chaps myself. Before we move on, Eli, I see that you have a question.
Good, thank you. Kenny, I'm curious because I know my understanding is for the Gwynns Falls with the, Patrick, if you don't mind going back to the before and after, that there actually was a good bit of work that was done by volunteers initially to sort of assist in kind of mitigating some of the trail issues, and that there's actually been some, given some of the prior to you coming on board, some of the gaps in Rec and Parks capacity for trail maintenance, there have been a good community of volunteers kind of stepping up to do work where they can. Has there been any discussion internally with Rec and Parks about trying to sort of like get those volunteers sort of more formally organized or supported in any kind of way?
That's a great question. So, and I did see some of there was a maybe one person wide chunk taken out. So I really appreciate whoever schlepped their chainsaw up to get that cut out before we could get to it. But yeah, so the community is a huge resource, and the Friends of Gwynn Falls Leakin Park is, they're out there every week doing pruning, tree, trash cleanups, invasive removal, that kind of thing. So the Friends of groups are a great place to at least get plugged in with your neighbors and the parks and get involved in that way. But we do have our community engagement lead, Carlos. I think, yeah, Carlos would be another contact point. But as I've come on, I did a lot of volunteering in the parks prior to this position. Weed warriors, that kind of thing. There's a lot of avenues and like a lot of different kind of disparate moving parts of volunteer action in the parks. But I would like to at least pull together some targeted projects. So let's put a pin in that one, because it is something I am looking forward to being more involved in, maybe leading some groups. But yeah, I would say in the meantime, get involved with your local Friends of the Parks group. But yeah,
that's really encouraging. I'm glad to hear that you're sort of open to the idea. I do think some sort of thinking about sort of a supportive training on it, like similar to what Rec and Parks has already done with the tree keepers and the weed warriors training programs, like focused on trail maintenance, could be pretty successful. I mean, I think Peter Griffith is in the chat sharing that he was the volunteer responsible for the person-sized hole through the blockage. But and I guess as that develops, I expect that my colleague in the Department of Planning, Nick Shupin, who's our Greenway Trail Network planner, not to volunteer Nick without checking with him, but I expect it's the kind of thing that he would be interested in sort of supporting if we can.
No, that's a great idea. I'm definitely gonna raise that. I've got our agency meeting later this week, so that's a great idea. I'd love to move that forward. However, I can assist. So thank you for that. Thank you for the
Cool.
person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Kenny. We also still had another question. I believe Peter Griffin had his hand.
I had my hand up, but I think Eli covered it very well. I appreciate that maybe we can move on from here with pulling. I know that NIA, for instance, I did a ride with Black People Rides Bikes, and there was a lot of energy behind, let's get together and clean up some of the trails. So let's hope we can work together with Kenny. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
For that. Okay. Well, sounds like we're ready to move to the next agenda item.
Yes. Thank you, Alan. So climate action plan through the city planning. Eli, who's going to be speaking on this item today?
Colleague Ava
Yes.
will be presenting for the Office of Sustainability.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, great. Thanks so much for having me on the call to talk about the city's climate action plan. And I wanted to walk through some of our transportation related actions. We got a lot of feedback and input from the Department of Transportation on these, but I figured we would share them while we are in our public comment period for the climate action plan. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat where you can actually put your comments through a tool called Conveyo. And if it's okay, I will share my screen. Eli, I know you put some of those actions in the presentation itself, but I figured it'd be good to just share the plan with folks. So all right, so just to give folks a sense of the types of actions that we're aiming for as it relates to transportation and the CAP, we really want to support things that are going to help to improve overall air quality and the reduction of greenhouse gases. Also supporting transit-oriented communities or designs, kind of like getting towards that 15-minute city concept where amenities are within a 15-minute walk, bike ride, or bus ride. We also wanted to promote and expand existing commuter connection programs, such as the city's iRide program, but also the Maryland Commuter Connections program, and support micro-mobility advancement. So I'm going to just run through these really quickly, just to give people, again, a sense of like the actions that we have in here. And then I guess Patrick or Eli, you let me know if you all want to open things up for questions or how you want to do it afterwards. But we really want to improve transit active transportation or more sustainable modes of transportation. And part of that is implementing the bikeways and complete streets plans to improve more active modes of transportation. Again, as I mentioned, supporting more transit-oriented communities, kind of going beyond the concept or the idea of transit-oriented development, because not all communities necessarily will have like development investment for getting more in order to get to more kind of like accessibility. Also have specific goals that relate to revising parking standards as it relates to development projects to kind of like provide disincentives or kind of revisit how some of those development projects are supported in such a way that does not incentivize more impervious surfaces, does not incentivize more parking, but incentivizes more infrastructure that supports more active or micromobility. I also want to promote and expand existing as I mentioned, commute trip reduction programs. So that includes the state's commuter connections programs, the city's iRide programs, and then also just kind of getting people thinking more about how to support carpooling or some of those other types of, they may not be transit oriented, but definitely ways to reduce emissions as it relates to minimizing the prevalence of single occupancy vehicles. We want to incentivize all the micromobilities, all the folks on 2 wheels, 3 wheels, or 4 smaller wheels. Also establish car-free zones that support kind of like more pedestrian corridors to enhance safety and improve transit for low-income neighborhoods. Have to acknowledge that T7 really has that the power for that sits within the state, and with the conversations around the red line, I think we probably could add more context there in terms of like what's going on with that, even though we don't know yet how it will unfold. We want a partnership with rideshare programs to enhance that, again, especially among employers. The more employers can incentivize more ride sharing among their employees, I think we get at that behavior change more. And also just support more community design. And some of these are a little repetitive. I will acknowledge that, and that's something that we will consolidate some of these, but more design that fosters more active or more movement or active transportation, or active ways to get around, I should say. Given that there are a lot of incentives for electric vehicles, for the purchase of electric vehicles, we support that idea, but also want to acknowledge that for many low-income households, the money to like buy a new EV may that just may not be as easy as a goal to achieve. And so we want to support community level electric vehicle sharing and figuring out what that looks like, partnering with different community-based organizations to support that type of way to give people access to electric vehicles. And again, transitioning away from that vehicle ownership model or a single occupancy vehicle model. Expand EV charging networks, and this last set of actions, promoting a zero emission bus transition, which we know is happening at the state level, and I believe has already happened or is in transition with as it relates to the circulator. Promote electric car share and ride share, and support sorry, some of this is repetitive as I'm reading it out, but more EV sharing. So there's some things that we want to do internal to city government as well, in terms of again, looking at like our workforce and supporting more sustainable transportation options among the workforce. We also want to support the transition of the city's fleet to a zero emissions fleet. And there's, I think that's a real possibility, but figuring out like what that transition looks like for the city and working with the relevant internal agencies on that. And then also developing a plan to transition the city to zero emissions off-road vehicles. So things, different vehicles that may be for sweepers or other uses, ensuring that those are electrified or zero emissions as much as possible. And again, I mentioned, the state efforts. So as the state is rolling out its efforts, we want to be supportive of those efforts to advance transit and accessibility, especially as it relates to the city. And again, I think based on a lot of the comments that we've received thus far, we'll probably add more context and detail to this particular section. So that is it. We do encourage people to put your comments into the Conveyo tool, and it'll be open until October 31st. And in November, we'll be incorporating everyone's comments, doing some editing and reformatting to get the to put the necessary updates in there. In December, on the 20th and the 21st, the plan will go before the Sustainability and Planning Commissions, respectively. So if anyone is interested in seeing the final plan, you can definitely attend either one of those meetings to get a sense of how it panned out, but we'll also share it out amongst many different communication networks. And then lastly, we'll be having a launch event next year in January to just kind of present the plan, the final plan to the public. It'll be a public event, and also to talk through what implementation will look like beginning next year. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and happy to answer any questions that I can.
Great. Thank you so much. That's a lot of great information. I wanted to ask, was any part of this, did you consider as part of the plan taking advantage of any of the MDOT or recommending that the city take advantage of any of the MDOT tax benefits for the commuter tax benefit or parking cash out? I know that that's something that DC has been working incrementally towards. I think that it would be an interesting option, especially considering the price of downtown parking and some of the needs of our facilities, combined with, the mayor's office right now is encouraging people to come back to work, want people to come back to downtown. So parking may increase as a premium. So it may be an interesting time to look at that. I didn't know if that was part of the consideration of your proposals.
I think that's a great suggestion. I believe they're in Sustainable Transportation Working Group that we collaborate on with the Department of Transportation. I think this has come up in the past in terms of the parking cash out and things. I have to just acknowledge, I can't speak to the technical details right now, but I know it's something that we've talked about in the past, and whether or not it'll end up in the plan. It's a good point, because as I mentioned, some of these actions that I shared, they kind of overlap and can probably be consolidated, and we can probably get down to that deep level of detail. So it's a great suggestion. If you don't mind just putting that in Conveyo for me so I can make sure we incorporate it in the final plan, I'd appreciate that. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's a great consideration, and yeah, we'll definitely figure out like how to make sure we embed that in here. Yeah, to make sure it's on our radars for implementation.
Great.
Eli, did you have your?
Yeah, I feel like I should since we're in the same agency, I feel like I should know the answer to this question. But what is the relationship between the climate action plan and the Baltimore sustainability plan? Are they, just from a, like, if there's anyone who doesn't also know like the basic, that this is a regulatory requirement, for instance, I'm not sure that we touched on that bit of background and not everyone may be aware.
Yeah, and I just jumped right into the plan and didn't provide any kind of like primer. But in the Office of Sustainability, we oversee the implementation of 3 citywide plans, which includes the 2019 Sustainability Plan, our Climate Action Plan, and the Disaster Preparedness Plan. The 2019 Sustainability Plan is kind of like the more comprehensive plan that includes 243 actions, 5 different chapters, and goes into a lot of detail on the strategies and actions across a broad array of sectors. That plan kind of calls for the creation of other plans in the case where it is applicable, or policies, or further investigation, as well as calling for the support or advancement or improvement of different programs, policies, and systems. In that plan, we've set a goal to enhance or increase our carbon aim for more ambitious carbon neutrality goals. And so at the beginning of 2022, Mayor Scott did dedicate the city to reducing emissions through 2024 so that we are carbon neutral. And we have interim targets to reach for 30 and 60% in 2025 and 2030. For climate action plans, those typically look specifically at the reduction of greenhouse gases. So this is the methane, this is the carbon, these are the gases that warm the planet. This plan, climate action plans don't often look at other air pollutants, such as criteria air pollutants that the CDC tracks and measures, which includes PM 2.5 and 10 and lead and other or other hazardous air pollutants. We believe that those measures and metrics are incredibly important, and we want to see that they are reduced. And we know that we'll see some benefit in air quality overall and benefits as it relates to air pollution as you reduce greenhouse gas emissions. However, that is a function right now that the state primarily has regulatory power over. And so in the climate action plan, we really wanted to focus and hone in on things that we as a city actually have the control over to implement and the authority to really move forward. The disaster preparedness plan, that is a FEMA regulated plan that's updated on a 5-year basis. And that looks at specific actions that the city can take to make ourselves more resilient to various threats and risk as it relates to climate and or human caused hazards. So it is our all hazards plan, and respectively the climate action plan, it is essentially our climate mitigation plan. So how are we mitigating the impacts of climate change? And the disaster preparedness plan is our climate adaptation plan. How are we adapting to, and again, making the city more resilient as we are facing greater and greater changes to our climate? So I hope that answers your question and provides the necessary context and details. I did not mention this, but we are also working on, well, next year we're going to have a greenhouse gas inventory that's completed for 2023. And so we'll have a really good sense of where we stand in meeting that 2025 interim target for the 30% reduction as it relates to 2007 baselines. And we did release like our 2020 greenhouse gas inventory, which gives a really good sense of like where our emissions stand. Generally, 23% of the emissions or our greenhouse gases across the city are attributed to transportation. Statewide, you'll see that transportation makes up like a much larger portion of the greenhouse gas inventory, but in urban environments and in the city, most of our emissions come from buildings. That's around 64%, then around 13% is from waste. So transportation, we know it's regardless, it's still a very important sector that we want to focus on, because it takes so much, there's so much like actions that we all can take in order to lead towards those emissions, the reduction in emissions as it relates to the transportation sector. So.
Really helpful. Thank you.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to elevate a question that was in the chat. Ms. Worthing asked, to your understanding, are there any plans for e-bike credits for the city? And then we'll
I think this is, no, it's a great question. And I apologize, I was not monitoring the chat, but that's a great question. And I think it's something we should consider putting in the plan. And Ms. Worthing, if you wouldn't mind putting that on Conveyo, just so we have it documented. But I think it's a great recommendation, and I think it is something that should go in the plan, and definitely we support it. We've talked about it internally again in some groups, and so yeah, I think it's an excellent idea. Very supportive of it.
All right, so Peter, you had a question?
Yes, is it Ms. Richardson, Dr. Richardson?
You can call me Ava.
Ava, okay, Ava.
Yeah.
Are you linked in with the Department of Energy, the Baltimore Social Environmental Collaborative? It's one of these DOE Urban Integrated Field Laboratories. Are you connected with those folks?
I am, yes. We work pretty closely with that group. We supported their proposal with a letter of support, and we are working with them on various topics. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, Ken Davis is an old colleague and friend. And the other thing, if you have an email address to drop in the chat or something, if I could put you in contact with NASA's carbon monitoring system stakeholder group, the person who's the lead on that. You might be a very interesting speaker for NASA's stakeholder series.
Oh, thank you. That'd be great. Yeah, I'll drop my email address in the chat, and I'll also put our general sustainability email address in the chat as well, in case anyone. We know Conveyo may not be a tool that that is easy to navigate for everyone, so we want to be conscious of that. So if someone would prefer to send in a letter with comments or anything, I'll drop an email in the chat so you can send it there. But yeah, please make sure you put your comments in there, and feel free to reach out to our office if you have any further questions. Thanks again to the commission for allowing us a chance to present.
Great. Thank you so much, Ava. Patrick, you want to move us to our next agenda item?
Yes, I would be remiss if I didn't say I was using this time to make some updates. So let me just go ahead and complete those, and we'll continue on. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. And 1 second. One second, everyone. Okay. All right, there we go. So let's go ahead and share that again.
While Patrick is bringing that up, I do want to just remind everyone that we are expecting to have 70 degrees over the next 4 days consistently. Awesome opportunity to get out and play before the winter is upon us.
Okay, there we go.
Really also a reminder of the importance of the climate action plan to make sure that if we can stick with a 70-degree late October instead of a 90-degree late October.
That is absolutely true. Thank you for that also.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for the intermediary conversation. That was really helpful. While we have transitioned from the climate action plan updates, I'd like to go ahead and shift on to our new mobility manager here at DOT, who will provide the dockless vehicle update. Mike?
Thank you, Patrick, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Cabetta. I was in attendance for our last meeting, but for those of you who weren't able to attend, I am the new mobility dockless vehicle manager. So we're just going to go over a couple of slides and projects that we've been working on our end as far as both the e-bikes and e-scooters here at DOT. The first slide that we have up right here has a lot of data. So before we start seeing what this data is, we got to figure out kind of what it means. So this is pretty much a graph representing the number of trips that we're seeing in comparison to previous years at this program. So the reason that we are tracking this kind of data is that we want to make sure that we're seeing an increase in ridership for a multitude of reasons. As definitely mentioned earlier through Ava, we want to reduce our emissions. And if we see an increase in ridership, we can almost safely assume that there's a decrease in people using their personal vehicles or personal cars rather, and that can decrease emission and create more sustainable solutions. We want to obviously remove a lot of the traffic or reliance for cars within Baltimore City. And if we create better alternatives, especially for last mile transit, people will be less likely to drive those vehicles. So it's pretty much following in compliance with the Complete Streets program, which is one of our goals here in making more transportation solutions for everyone in Baltimore City. We're also responsible in making sure that all vehicles are accessible and distributed evenly amongst the city, making sure that all communities, no matter the income or racial demographic, have accessibility to our vehicles. We have several different equitable programs that we work with different organizations to make sure that we reach that need. We've worked with nonprofits like Bike More, that I'm sure all of you are familiar with, and also our vendors, Spin and Super Pedestrian, who are also joint, working with us in achieving that same mission to make sure that everyone has these opportunities available to them. So moving on to the graph here, You'll see that on the blue, it's representing our numbers from 2023, as opposed to green, which is representing our numbers from 2022. So luckily around this time of year, as opposed to last year, at least, we've seen an increase in ridership. We definitely attribute that to a lot of things. Right now, we're working with the Better Bike Share Program grant given to us from the Baltimore Civic Fund in creating equity payment plans. So those are some of the reasons why we see an increase in ridership, or one of the reasons we believe we've seen an increase in ridership. And Patrick, you can go on to the next slide, please. Sure. And this is pretty much a graph here showing or representing our average daily trip usage per vehicle. While, as you can see on the top right, we have about an average of 1 trip a day per vehicle. Our main goal is to get about 2. And the reasons are what I mentioned earlier. We want to create more sustainable solutions. We want to make sure that vehicles are being fully utilized. And if we want to also prevent clutter. We know we often get that complaint here, or at least since I've been here, that the vehicles are oftentimes blocking sidewalks, and these are obviously valid concerns. But they're less likely to happen if the vehicles are constantly being utilized to sit in positions where they would impede traffic or be an eyesore. So this is why we make sure it's important to track this kind of data and make sure that vehicles are being used to the utmost capability. You can go to the next slide, Patrick. As mentioned earlier, we do have a equity plan or micromobility low income payment plan for those who do qualify. If anyone here is interested, all you have to do is sign up via the app. You can scan this barcode and you can go ahead and just fill out all the necessary information. If you are under any type of government financial assistance, you're more likely to qualify. But that being said, the reason why programs like this are so important is because that we find that those who do have these options available or are 50% more likely to take rides as opposed to those who don't have these type of payment plan options. So if we want to increase ridership, we will have to make things more affordable for people, so that way they can see it as a more viable option. Simply put, if they find that it's cheaper and easier to get vehicles or to use the e-scooters or e-bikes, we also create an environment where people will be more likely to, use it and spread the word about it, and it can build upon from there, from building upon current bike lanes and other infrastructures, and getting more people involved in understanding the importance of these types of programs and creating better lasting solutions for transportation everywhere here in Baltimore. And you can go ahead, Patrick, to the last one. And if any of you here on the call are interested in the program in general, or getting data, or subscribing to our monthly newsletter, feel free to email us here at dot-community@baltimorecity.gov. We can set up events where we can demonstrate the vehicles to you guys. We can also give you guys data about the program so far, especially specific regions or areas if you're interested. And you can also reach out to us if you're having issues as far as something going on with the vehicles. Maybe they're parked properly or things of that nature, but you are definitely more than welcome to report any issues that may occur. But I think I may have overspoke real quick. When it comes to vehicles being improperly parked, you definitely want to contact the provider first. So whether it be spin or super pedestrian, and you can do that via the phone number on the vehicle itself or via their app. And the only reason why I would suggest that is because you will get a quicker result from them, as opposed to going through DOT, who would then have to reach out to the company to get a representative out there. So try to use the app or call the companies directly if you have an issue similar to that. But all other issues, I would definitely suggest emailing us through this community email here, and we'll definitely get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
I keep forgetting that we have to kind of play Mic on, mic off. Well, fantastic. Thank you, Mike. That was fantastic. I think we need to. I like hearing more about mobility, dockless mobility, micromobility, and how it interacts with the bike program. Um, Having Mike here is a huge, huge asset because we're trying to create a stronger connection between what they do on their end and what we're trying to do on our end, especially in terms of improvements of of the bike network infrastructure. So that stated, let's go ahead and get into project updates. So I do need to bring to the attention to the attendees that there was an update to the agenda, looking at what was completed and what was publicly available. I found that two of the, if not three, two of the resurfacing plans that we were going to talk about, Argonne Drive. Argonne Drive did not actually have a resurfacing plan to show, and therefore information for me to create for this presentation. So Argonne Drive was removed for that reason, and we'll be going over St. Lo Drive, Madison Avenue, and point of note for Harford Road. That is still in design, and that is why we're not presenting that today. Other projects that we'll be talking about is the bike and pedestrian count program. After, we'll also talk about the recent and ongoing construction around the city. And then we'll close out with a just kind of a brief overview of the ADA transition plan that happened on October 18th. So, bike and pedestrian count program. So this is something that's been very near and dear to my own heart. When I started at DOT last year, this was a project that my predecessor, Matt Hendrickson, actually handed to me. And we introduced this project to MBAC in spring of 2022 after receiving a Bikeways Award from MDOT the previous summer. Since then, we actually had a award, another Bikeways Award that following summer, the summer of 2022. And using the very members and attendees of this commission, I actually put together a focus group to give us a stronger idea, DOT, a stronger idea of where we can install and should install our permanent automated bike counters, and in some regards, pedestrian counters, depending on where and where they would be installed and the constraints of that location. So moving to the present or approximately the present, this project, at least the first round of it, has concluded. As of now, we have 10 counters across the city that are collecting data right now as we speak on the different riding habits of different Baltimoreans and visitors alike, say on the Jones Falls Trails and the East Coast Greenway, just really giving us good data on how our bike infrastructure is being used. The latest update within the history of the short history of the program so far is Rails to Trails Conservancy actually provided us an award to install additional counters on their behalf for counters on Baltimore City's trails, or I should say, Rec and Parks trails to collect data for pedestrians and bicyclists and everything that rolls in between for that. And then, more installations are coming. And what you see on the slide here are just a sample of the type of information that we'll be presenting in the future. Again, reiterating that point about micro mobility and dockless vehicle having this great data to really demonstrate all of the success and at least monitoring of the operations of how we're doing things. The bike program also wants to have that sort of accessible information where we can tell the story of all of the great infrastructure and people who are using what we have. So people ask, what's next? well, what's next is that we're going to launch the program formally later this year. We say launch the program because um, the reality is we have a lot of smaller projects just kind of rolling around that are all associated with the larger vision, which is to collect data on people who bike and walk across the city. And so we're going to combine all those projects into one program so that they're easier to maintain, easier to organize, and ultimately easier to create the story for what Baltimore City does produce. Um, Actionable next steps. We want to set benchmarks to start to validate the data collected. That's actually one of the reasons we didn't present anything today is because the counters just went in the summer. Things are still kind of getting cleaned up. And we just need to make sure that what we are presenting is true and accurate instead of just excited and there, if you know what I mean. Um, as stated, Rails to Trails, we have that award that we're working very closely with them and Eco Counter to install the counters on the trail systems. We have the MDOT Bikeways Award that we're hoping that the Board of Estimates goes ahead and approves so we can move forward with that part of the project. And we're in CIP season, our capital improvement program season. And we want to, again, turn the program into something that's more sustainable and permanent and not so dependent on awards. And we are very thankful and grateful for awards from the state and other philanthropic organizations. But we really want to make sure that this has its own 2 feet and its own 2 legs to stand on when it's time to expand or maintain what we literally put in the ground. So after that, the state, we have other requirements and other goals that we want to do. And so just overall, this is just a really exciting, I guess, accomplishment, if we want to, call it that, that DOT has undertaken and has been undertaking for the past year. And so with that stated, let's go ahead and move on to resurfacing projects.
There
So
were a number of questions in the chat regarding the bike counter program and a question from Graham Carrill Allen asking whether there was an opportunity for any public comment regarding I assume, Graham, that was with regards to the bike and pedestrian count program, but if it was on another topic, then we may want to wait on that. But did you want to review the questions, Patrick?
are there a lot of questions in the chat right now, or?
The questions were, one was on whether the data would be posted publicly online anywhere.
Yes, the data will be publicly available in time. Those logistics are being worked out. We don't want to rush and put things online if we aren't confident that that information is accurate.
And the next two questions were regarding the kind of like the geographical distribution of the counters. One saying it didn't seem like there were many or any counters on the north side of Baltimore, and a question regarding the sort of relationship between the bike counters and the priority low stress network implementation. That there was had been some bike boulevard planning for Southwest Baltimore, but that I think that I guess the question is more on it's kind of a two-part question, but the part that relates to the bike counting is whether it may lead to the modification of the bike master plan and priority lanes in the future.
Yeah, so the first question on core facilities. The reason why, or one of the many reasons why the counters were put in the way that they were like that is because there are very important investments that the city has made in the core over the course of the bike program's history. And we wanted to install those counters to demonstrate their value. The downtown bike network, for example, has been around since 2015. And while anecdotally and by the day to day, we know that that is a very important network, especially Maryland Avenue, Cathedral, and Hopkins Place, and everything in between. We know that that's an important network connection. We actually don't have the data to actually show the state and show the federal government, hey, this is great. Give us more awards so that we can build more. So that was one of the reasons why they were kind of concentrated along what's already been completed or constructed, I should say. Another thing that was realized early on was um, we wanted to put the counters in places where we can ensure that we have solid data, and therefore that meant installing them in our separated infrastructure. And currently, our separated infrastructure is concentrated in the way that it is. There obviously are plans to put more separated infrastructure in West and East Baltimore, but currently that's just what we're working on. I will throw a shout out to the Baltimore Development Corporation, Louis Cardona, who actually stated that we should put a counter, and we did on Eastern Avenues. Most people call it the sidewalk, but technically it's a side path, according to the bicycle master plan. That is this right here near Highland Town. We are getting a ton of data from all the people that are walking, biking, scootering, and everything in between, using that very vital connection to get across that very high stress roadway there. So we're trying to be creative with the input to see what type of counters we can install in the next round. Um, and to answer the question on the Southwest Baltimore portion, that was also a project that's very near to me as well, where we want to purchase in the next round temporary tube counters to place in um, part of maybe the Sherrold facilities or the bike lane, just a simple bike lane facilities. Put those down, collect data, and then get a better idea of the projection of where people are riding in addition to these permanent locations. And so we hear you. We have the we understand. If we could, we put it on all on all the mileage of the bike network, but we just have to work with what we have so far. All right.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move to the next one.
Thank you, sir. So resurfacing projects. So a quick 101 on what resurfacing is. Resurfacing is when you're driving and then all of a sudden you hit that big bump, and then all of a sudden your car is just like jumping all around because all the pavement is gone. You have now driven into the what's called resurfacing, or something that's in the process of resurfacing. Resurfacing is when you scrape up all that old pavement and asphalt, and then you eventually replace it with new asphalt and new pavement markings. It's just it's general maintenance is how we take care of our roads. What's special here in Baltimore is because we have our complete streets ordinance. Whenever roadways are resurfaced, those roadways must be redesigned to comply with that ordinance. Therefore, that could take the form of a sharrow on a low stress road, or a separated bike lane on a higher stress road. And what we're presenting today are the latest resurfacing projects in the bike facilities that have been created as a result of that automatic sort of work that's done throughout the year. So this first project is Madison Avenue. It can be seen in the neighborhood of Madison Park. The extents are between Dolphin Street and Meccan Street, and there are sharrows. Now, why are there sharrows? Why are there not something more significant? The reason why we have sharrows for this particular roadway is because it's low stress. It's comfortable to ride on already, Therefore, the Complete Streets Ordinance stated that we can put sharrows there. Now, this doesn't bar in the future that we can include wayfinding and possible speed humps, but just for the sake of the resurfacing for this particular roadway, it is sharrows. Another project that was recently completed was St. Lo Drive. St. Lo Drive was a pretty lengthy project that went from that goes from Harford Road to Sinclair Lane, where a separated bike lane, a buffered bike lane was installed, and the reason being the level of traffic stress is much higher here. We wanted, or per the Complete Streets Ordinance, when the level of traffic stress is very high, we have to install separated infrastructure to lower the stress level of riding along that roadway. So when St. Lo Drive was resurfaced, that's why a buffered bike lane was constructed. Now, recent and ongoing, and while I'm here, I think I'll also go ahead and drop in the chat the resurfacing map, so that if anyone ever wants to know what resurfacing projects are happening in their area, you can go ahead and go to this link, and it'll show you the different resurfacing projects across the city. So I'm dropping that link in the chat now. It even shows resurfacing projects from previous years on up to today and what will still be coming in the future. The goal of MBAC actually is to have this be a venue where the resurfacing projects and the bike lanes, bike facilities that are created as a result are not a surprise. We recognize that DOT has had some communication challenges regarding the resurfacing and the creation of new bike lanes without what feels to be no warning. Um, that's um, that's the result of this, is the resurfacing and the Complete Streets Ordinance working in tandem. So in the future, I'd like to use, or DOT would like to use MBAC as a way to present these plans as part of our strategy to communicate what's coming, and perhaps even in the future receive comments on what could be done differently. So stay tuned. That's We're coordinating that with our traffic division, and it's a work in progress. Now for recent and ongoing construction, recently the Mount Royal Avenue road diet. This was another project that was presented last spring as part of our Rapid Enhancement Plans program, a program that is funded by Maryland Department of Transportation Bikeways again. They provided us a very sizable grant with the city's match to create these rapid facilities where we are to create bike facilities that addresses gaps within the existing bike network using highly accessible and quickly deployable materials. For this particular project, we wanted to connect the already existing concrete separated bike lane on Mount Royal Avenue. The way that we did that was we actually ended up taking the parking on the curb side of the northern and southern end of Mount Royal Avenue and placing it over into the existing two-way traffic lane or driving lanes, which in a sense resulted in a road diet. That road diet allowed for new on-street parking along the corridor in key segments, particularly near Micah. This picture right here shows the new on-street parking that was created as a result of the road diet, which started at Dolphin Street. In other sections, it allowed the creation of a separated bike lane. So this transformation of this vital roadway is a big win for the bike network, is a big win for MBAC. It connects the Jones Falls Trail, which is a very significant piece of infrastructure, to North Avenue Rising's separated bike lane. And so we're really excited that we were able to not only receive the award, design, do public input, but ultimately construct another bike facility. Another project that was ongoing and is now completed is the 28th Street Multimodal Connections. That was the name of the project, but it's now the 28th Street Multimodal Connection. In this project, we completed a road diet between Sesson Street and Maryland Avenue. The features are a single vehicular travel lane, a shared mobility lane in the form of this separated facility here with bump outs, flex posts, and concrete um, separation. There's also segments where intersection bump outs were provided to make crossing across 28th Street safer and pedestrians more visible to people who are driving their cars down the street. We completed traffic signal retimings to improve the traffic flow from those getting off of the I-83 expressway and trying to traverse to different parts of Baltimore. And as with any new projects, new street markings, that includes the mobility lane, but that also includes the bump outs and the crosswalks. Um, Crosswalks that were faded are now new, and just an all around better corridor for everyone, people who walk, drive, um, ride bikes, take scooters, other mobility devices. This is a major win for the community and also DOT. As for the planning process, this road diet was determined as a preferred option through much discussion with the community. Um, that discussion with the community included public surveying and the reviewing of that data. And in addition to the public information, the internal DOT expertise that was done in the form of a traffic study of how traffic would flow and change with this new roadway configuration. And overall, um, the bike network is improved significantly. Not only do we have a connection between Reservoir Hill and Remington, but we have now connected two of our premier facilities, whether they are in a wonderful state or a state that's constantly in progress. The Big Jump on Druid Park Lake Drive and the Maryland Avenue cycle track. Both of these are separated facilities outside of traffic that are, again, separated from people who are driving very quickly. Um, and the 28th Street multimodal connection provides that connection between those two significant pieces of investment that DOT has constructed. And again, to reiterate, this is a low stress connection across a I-83 between Northwest Baltimore and downtown and north of downtown. So this is a tremendous project. We do recognize that there will be some changes as traffic does conform and recognizes that this is something new. And DOT traffic and DOT planning are watching and observing the traffic patterns. And if need be, if there needs to be modifications to the existing design, those considerations will be reviewed and considered in a complete streets viewpoint. So all you folks that are sending your emails and asking questions, we have them, we're reviewing them, we're responding to all of you. We hear you. Okay, next project. The next project that we have is the Madison Avenue Bicycle Boulevard. This project was happened very serendipitously, actually. So this was another bikeways rapid enhancement plan that was already proposed and scoped out to be a bike boulevard, but due to the nature of the work that was needed to actually install the pavement markings and the speed humps themselves, it actually triggered a resurfacing. And when you trigger a resurfacing for certain roadways, you now trigger trigger is a strong word, but um, when you do a resurfacing of any roadway, you then have to replace the non-compliant ADA ramps. So the community that was recently going to only receive a bicycle boulevard, by nature of this project, we were able to bring all of the ADA ramps that weren't compliant into compliance, um, virtually improving the community, not only for cyclists, but for those who bike, walk, use scooters, and the people that I see use wheelchairs in that area. So this was a major win for the city and the community as a whole. Yes, Eli.
Patrick, just clarifying, because this project was also included in the list of resurfacing projects. Is this a distinct? Is it from DOT's perspective? Is there sort of two distinct initiatives, the resurfacing and the Madison Avenue Bike Boulevard, or is this sort of one and the same project?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because even John, we talked about that a little bit. It's like, what's the difference between Madison Avenue? It's just by happenstance that a resurfacing was happening between Dolphin Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. This project actually goes from North Avenue. This project we're on the slide for right now goes between North Avenue and Wilson Street, or Utah Marshburn Elementary School. And so, who knew we were going to receive a complete facility from North Ave to Martin Luther King Boulevard? But the stars aligned, and here we are with something fantastic for everyone. Now, in regards to, do we want more of those sort of coordinated opportunities to um, dovetail in the future? Absolutely. And that's why we want to work with NBAC more closely, and our own partners more closely, to ensure that big wins like this and opportunities like this are identified and captured.
Thanks for clarifying. There also was a question in the chat about the timeline for installing speed humps on the Madison Avenue Bike Boulevard, and a sort of question about the current markings, and whether that indicates the size of the bump. If you don't have that information right on hand, though, then we can always answer it offline. So just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the question in the chat.
Of course, of course. Regarding traffic engineering questions, I do need to highlight that our traffic engineer representative for DOT, that seat is now vacant. The previous holder of that seat is no longer with DOT. So any questions regarding traffic engineering and things of the like, I'm actually not the person that can speak on that. But I can speak generally from a bicycle planning and just really active transportation planning aspect on this. So with that stated, what are the questions?
Let's start with Jed because he had his hand up as well. So let him ask his question as we look and formulate some of these questions, because I'm looking at some of the detail that they're asking for that may be best served if we are given the opportunity to do some research, as opposed to trying to just come up with a response off the top. So Jed, we're going to go ahead and jump to you for your question.
Well, I just wanted to just go back to 28th Street really quick. It's actually closed right now entirely by BGE with no notice during rush hour, so that's a bit of a mess. But since there's still a gap on the bridge where they're missing water barriers, there are people just like flying down the street in the bike lane right now. This has been an issue during rush hour for like, I don't know, couple weeks now, and it'd be really great to get those barriers restored before someone gets, hit by a driver in the bike lane.
Understood. Yeah, Jed, we have your emails. And Nor, while he's still here, is working very fervently to take care of that. But we hear you.
One of the questions in the chat along those lines on 28th Street was requesting a replacement of the current sewer grates for a more bike-friendly version of that. Is that something that has been discussed or looked at?
No, it's not. But we'll take that down as a note and look into it.
Thank you. And then I see Graham has raised his hand. So Graham, there's also a question regarding what was just recently shared.
Yes, thank you. My name is Graham Carell Allen, and I live on Auchentrally Terrace. I'm a bike rider by day and then a contractor. I drive, a van with a trailer, so I kind of experience all sides of traffic. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of Complete Streets, and I appreciate that the mayor was the co-sponsor of that back when he was in council. DOT, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you for helping realize the community vision on 28th Street, as well as extending the Mount Royal protected cycle track, which was historically stymied by the previous administration at MICA's lobbying a previous iteration of DOT so that bike lane would stop at MICA and not continue into West Baltimore. So happy to see that MICA did an about face on that and that you all were able to achieve a facility now that actually connects with North Avenue Rising. That being said, North Avenue is still extremely dangerous for folks on bikes. I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but we're all saddened to see that a 66-year-old man was killed, hit by not by one, but two cars on North Avenue last week. These are some of the injuries and deadly experiences that folks who rely on bikes to get to work face when dealing with crazy facilities like running from a bus lane and then taking a dog leg, jogging over the street, dodging a highway on-ramp, and then going down the middle cycle track on that bridge. It's just not an ideal facility. I know that was the state's project, but we all advised against this in the planning stages and are not happy with how it has turned out. Bus lanes are great for the buses, and I applaud that. Now, Druid Park Lake Drive, Complete Streets design effort still needs priority. I want to thank Graham Young for working on an application for a Reconnecting Communities grant to help advance the planning from 10% to a whopping 30%. Obviously, we need to do that step, but it's not enough. When we started, when myself and neighbors from all around the park, Legacy residents, Councilman Pinkett, and so on, started talking about this in 2017, DOT said to me, and all of us as stakeholders, this is a 7-year project. It's now 2023 and we don't have anything done on Druid Park Lake Drive, and it's still 7 years out. So we need to kick that into gear, because once you do cross over the bridge on 28th into the big jump, it becomes really dangerous for folks. And obviously, and you all have heard this, but I'm just going to keep on reiterating, it is not fair to residents of West Baltimore that we are separated by an 8-lane highway from Druid Hill Park with only 4 or 5 crosswalks going into it. That is absolutely a travesty, and the city really needs to be working at a much faster pace on alleviating those historically racist planning decisions that were made in the 1940s to the 1960s. The big jump is really in bad shape. I mean, I know that Druid Park Lake Drive is supposed to get resurfaced, and that's the opportunity for then restoring the alignment of the big jump with concrete barriers, at least along the drive itself. But where the big jump goes over the bridge, we have these empty plastic barriers that every week get blown aside by the wind kind of down the slope of the bridge and into the shared use path, blocking pedestrians, blocking folks who rely on wheelchairs, and blocking people like myself and others who do also rely on bikes. And I guarantee you, if those barriers by nature of their slope were instead sliding into the car lanes, we would not have such a crappy facility. It's only because these barriers are blocking the pedestrians and the wheelchair riders and the bicycles that we don't see more urgency in fixing them. Right now, they're all missing pins. I don't know if it was DOT or folks on foot have been inserting sticks like branches, pieces of wood to try and jerry rig some type of way to keep those barriers in an alignment. It is absolutely deplorable and an extreme embarrassment. So I really, really encourage DOT. Y'all made a lot of amazing progress on 28th Street. Don't let the big jump across the bridge overshadow some amazing work that y'all have been doing otherwise. So please replace those with concrete barriers. We know engineers say that that's possible. We hope that DOT's internal engineering will agree with that one day and give us the proper facilities so that people are not being put in danger by barriers flying across the bridge due to high breezes. And lastly, I'm really eager to hear updates on the Utah Place cycle track and of course the Greenway Trail, as it would hopefully one day continue from Druid Hill Park to Lincoln Park. Both of those projects were seemingly indefinitely shelved deep into planning stages. And as longtime advocates and residents in West Baltimore, myself and many others are very disappointed to see that the concerns and sort of shouting down by a few seemingly very powerful individuals has been able to completely derail Complete Streets projects like the Utah cycle track, like our Greenway Trail, which has had, I think, 3 or 4 attempts at starting a planning effort, and every time it gets derailed. We can't keep on letting this happen. I'm not talking to DOT. I'm talking to the mayor's office right now. Mayor's office, y'all need to provide the political power to DOT to do the right thing. And if you don't do that before the election, it's going to be really hard for Brandon Scott to pull together the coalition that got him elected in the first place. Thank you.
Graham, appreciate your comments. We'll definitely take all of those into consideration. As regarding the actual bike structure, I'm sure DOT, we are now aware of it, so we will be working diligently to come up with a more viable solution to make that a safe travel for all folks who are using that bridge area. I'm going to go ahead and call on a couple of hands that I see that have been patiently waiting in the chat. I'm going to start with Sean Burnett, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Omar Ahmad.
Thanks, Alan. So I'm curious, and Patrick or Eli, maybe either of you can assist me. I know that in Washington, D.C., there are specific regulatory compliances that contractors have to meet when they do street reconstruction, whether it be utility reconstruction or anything like that. Jed Weeks mentioned earlier that the 28th Street cycle track is now being dug up for some emergency utility work. We've got old utilities in the city. We do a lot of work in that. However, in Washington, D.C. and a number of other cities, there are regulations that require contractors to set up a fair and accessible workaround, right? Where there is a cycle track present, if they're going to block access to the cycle track, the contractor is responsible for erecting a safe piece of infrastructure, creating another protected cycle lane in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure we have something like that here, and I'm curious what is the process currently for utility contractors and other road resurfacing work? How do they interact with DOT when they're getting their permits, their right-of-way permits? And how do we push back or try to create safer spaces? I know that was an involved question, but.
Yeah, Sean, I really am happy that you bring that up because it is actually a recurring question. Well, first we have our maintenance of traffic plans. That is something that we're trying to beef up, especially from a multimodal perspective. We are working very fervently with traffic to incorporate some of the more innovative MOT plans out of New York City even. And we have a draft to make sure that when MOT is initiated, it does include bike and ped and multimodal needs. So that's one thing that is happening internally. Regarding the right-of-way permitting process, because of the lack of policy around MOT at the multimodal level, unless DOT traffic makes the well, just be honest, if they even have the staff to create an MOT plan or catch it, then that's when the MOT plan for a multimodal group is made. But if they don't catch it because we don't have a policy mechanism that does provide, then sometimes those things are lost. Regarding the after effects of what the utility company should be doing after they've completed their work, made the cuts, and moved on. The city actually has a street cut policy, um, whether to the degree of how much and how well it is enforced and maintained. I think that's up to debate and something that should be discussed internally. I'm pretty sure that there are things that I've missed or parts that I didn't necessarily address. But I would really, I think as MBAC commissioners, we should definitely take some time to dive into this and discuss it more.
Sure, I appreciate those answers. I think, and we can talk about this offline. I think we can talk about this in our next, couple of meetings. But I'm very interested to see, because this is a challenge I've heard over and over again, as probably you have. How is the city controlling the right of way? How are we regulating access to the right of way that maintains safe passage, right? And then also, how are we enforcing that when that work is completed, we have a state of repair, right? That isn't just big lumps of asphalt in the middle of some of these infrastructure projects that we've spent money on, that are important, that people utilize for transportation. So I think that'd be a great topic to cover in a future MBAC. But I'll, in the spirit of time, we've got about 18 minutes left on the clock, so we might want to keep moving.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sean. This is perfect. And Omar and Miss Worthington, I do see your hand up. We'll call at you at the other topics slide. Next up, we're going to actually get into overall project updates. So Baltimore Greenway Northern segment. As we know, to reiterate, the project was closed out with MDOT this past June. The grant and the reimbursement is being processed with the city and between the state. That work is ongoing. The public outreach meeting to present the results is scheduled for the fall. There is very active meetings internally to prepare and get ready to present that information for the eastern and western segment of this project. In an important note to remind everyone here is that while we do have 30% plans, the alignments and the actual analysis of those designs is ongoing due to the very nature of 30% plans are not 100% plans. So we definitely want to remind the public of that. And after 30%, we will be advancing the project to the next phase, utilizing outreach. Baltimore Greenway Trail Middle Branch, that project has a award from the Transportation Alternatives Program. Due to that money being federally supported, that must go through a two-tier selection process. It's very lengthy, it's very onerous, so that's why that is a single bullet there. The project manager is working very hard with our construction division as well as with the state program manager to ensure we can get that done as expeditiously as possible. For rapid enhancement plans, the two remaining ones that we have in process and also being rescoped are the Sharp Street Bikeway public engagement did a public meeting was had and survey results are still being reviewed. This project will move forward as soon as DOT has more CAD support to draw up new plans. As for 27th Street, the Bike Boulevard, that scope is actually being reviewed with I think the final decision is actually going to be to remove 27th Street from the Rapid Enhancement Plan program because per the grant agreement, the project actually no longer has relevancy due to the 28th Street multimodal connection. So we may actually be shifting resources over to the Sharp Street bikeway connection, which is needing more and more needs as we speak to the state. Wabash Avenue Multimodal Improvement Study, that project did wrap up on, at least from a public standpoint, on August 23rd with an open house in the Park Heights area. Very successful. Really thankful. Not Phi Beta Sigma, the sister organization that I am really sorry that I can't remember right now. The Zetas, providing their meeting house to allow us to meet and present the plans. Currently, the interagency, or I should say previously, the interagency and public comment period ended on September 15th. Those comments have been aggregated and sent over to our consultant, who is incorporating those into the final 30% plan. And once those plans are provided, they will be published to the Streets of Baltimore webpage. The Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard side path, similar to the Middle Branch segment, that is also going through a two-tier selection process. Additionally, since it is supported by both a state bikeways award and a MDOT SA or State Highway Administration TAP award, there are some logistical coordinations that must be had in order to make the funding of that grant work. We can tell you more about that. Tell you more about it, commissioners, when we have our next meeting or offline. Next slide. So Utah Place slash street separated bike lanes. This was a study that was led by McCormick Taylor back in the early 2000s. That was led in the past. The public comment period for this project closed in fall of 2021. And the design plans at that stage were presented over the summer of last year. Since then, the project went out to our sister agencies for comments. And per those interagency comments, we've actually learned that those plans are incomplete. Therefore, we are looking into a RFP or request for proposal to start to address those changes. We don't have a timeline on when that RFP will go out or when we'll get a new consultant to come on board to do the work. But we're very happy with the progress that we have made so far. One of the progress being the parking study that is currently being led by WSP to look at the different concerns that the residents have presented about the parking utilization or parking usage along the Utah Place area. Additionally, the Baltimore City Parking Authority actually brought up in their comments that a parking utilization study may be warranted given the amount of parking that is used in certain segments of the road, the proposed plan. So those are twofold comments that need to be addressed with more additional planning and design work. And as always, there is a Streets of Baltimore webpage that is published. The results of said parking study and updates to other aspects of this project will be posted there. Wolf and Washington Bikeway. That's another project that wrapped up in June of this year. reimbursements are ongoing with the state. The next stage is working with RK&K to get their agreement finalized so that we can move on with the 30% to 100% design outreach stage. We're projecting that to be this winter, but it may get pushed into the winter of 2024, depending on staffing and other resources at the planning, within the planning division. Jewett Park Lake Drive study. As Graham pointed out, funding for the 30% has been allocated in the 2024 CIP. To reiterate, we're in the 2025 CIP season. We're writing that up. The project manager will write a additional CIP request for more funding for the Jewett Park Lake Drive, not necessarily even the study, but the Jewett Park Lake Drive actual project for when it's implemented one day. And the city Department of Transportation, we are still, well, I don't know if we have any folks on the call who can confirm this, but the Reconnecting Communities grant, we were preparing that. I'm not sure if it's been submitted just yet. I haven't been directly involved with that process, but I do know that it's a significant one, and it is taking a lot of staff time. And lastly, we have the Big Jump conversion / Jewett Park Lake Drive. Very important to note that this would also be considered a sort of rapid project. This wouldn't be the completely resurfacing and turning Jewett Park Lake Drive into um, the wonderful road that we know that it deserves and the community deserves. This would be the formalizing of the Big Jump into a shared use path with those concrete barriers. As shown in the table, CIP funds have been allocated in 2022, but there will be an additional request for CIP funds in the FY25, if not 26 CIP, to account for the increase of funds, increase of cost for those concrete barriers, one. Two, a new consultant to look at the current alignment due to the DPW work. And three, the contractor that would be needed to install said concrete barriers. And four, the resurfacing of the entire roadway for that alignment. So those are very important components that in 2021 weren't factors because the DPW work hadn't started. In 2023, those conditions do exist. Therefore, we have to request more funds to address those new conditions, and that will include further coordination with DPW so that we can start to address all of those very important needs. So that's all we have for project updates. Now to, oh no, we have one more slide. I'm sorry, excuse me. Rapid enhancement plans. See that we have 7 minutes. So I'm actually just gonna just kind of have this here, show it online. This is what we have. I'll leave it up for a bit, and I'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions. And I'll need Sean, Alan, and Eli to help me out, and James to help me out in that regard.
So no problem. So what I would ask folks, because we do have limited time, if we can keep our questions kind of concise and share for no more than, I'm gonna say 30 seconds, so to give us opportunity to be able to respond to that and get a number of questions asked and answered. So believe Omar had his hand up for a little while, so I want to see if Omar still has a question that he would like to pose.
Yes, thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. I have two questions. So first on Utah, I know you gave that quick update, Patrick. I just want to ask for the parking study because I recall from the last MBAC 2 months ago that you said it had begun. Do you know what the timeline for that is and what the, I guess, subsequent steps are once that parking study is completed? And the second question I have is about back in September during the Bolton Hill Association meeting, Councilman Costello mentioned that DOT was looking at traffic calming requests on Lawrence, Lafayette, and Dolphin. I was just curious if that would involve any kind of bike lanes, moving east to west, because there's certainly a lack of those. So those are the two questions that I have.
Yeah, sure. So regarding the traffic requests, traffic calming requests, I'm not keen of. The traffic engineer probably would have known. So I would actually like to request that you email me, Omar. I know that you have my email about that one. Regarding the parking study, the reason why there's been a delay there is simply because of staffing. While we do have WSP leading, WSP is still supporting DOT staff in other projects in other areas, reconnecting communities, grant applications, for example, in other projects. So that's where it comes down to. Regarding timeline, um, I can't tell you for sure because we're starting to run into the holiday season, but we definitely want to finish it before the holiday season, if possible.
So when you say that, is that the parking study itself, or I assume that doesn't mean the installation? I mean, I'd be happy to.
No,
do
no, 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 no. The
Yeah.
parking study for Utah
Got
Place,
it. Okay.
right? And once we complete it, we'll we'll internally discuss on what next steps are and what that'll look like in terms of publishing and moving forward.
Got it. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
All right, so we'll go ahead to Miss Ellen Worthington.
Hello. I want to talk about Sharp Street. Sharp Street bike lane is 3 blocks long. This is not a multi-mile situation. And I've been involved with this for months, if not years. We had some meetings, I think, back in June with the DOT and also our illustrious councilman. There was various problems with those meetings. And that is that meetings were in Otterbein in a church that was, which had several members of the anti-bike community were members of the church, and that's also where the meeting was held. And the Otterbein was very vocal against the bike lane, and our councilman at the time wasn't very helpful at all. And the DOT said that they needed to do some more studies and they had to do a survey. Well, they did do a survey, as you see on your little chart here. That was months ago. And now there's no word anymore about any further action on Sharp Street. It just seems like we're on the delay, procrastinate, do nothing, and hopefully maybe the whole situation will get settled with a sheriff, which just actually makes things worse. And now you're telling us that the DOT guy is no longer with the DOT. I mean, how much more of this should we all take? This thing has been on the books for years. And just like the other previous man who was here stating the facts that our bike projects seem to take forever to get done, we only have 17 miles of bike lanes in this city. We are the embarrassment of the East Coast. Philadelphia, Boston, New York is doing such a much better job, as well as DC, and yet we just go after delay after delay after delay. So what?
Ms. Worthing, you've shared a whole lot of comment. I appreciate your comment. I appreciate your passion on this. We do want to make sure we have enough time to answer two other folks who have questions. So do you have a specific question, or is it just around our timing on when we're going to get this done?
When is the next thing going to happen on this?
Okay, so we are going to work on that and be able to give you a formal answer on when the next thing will be happening on this, okay? Please work with us on that. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump to Jed.
Thank you.
And as I stated, folks, we can try to keep our questions concise so we can get everyone in.
Just Sharp Street. I had submitted an email. I just hadn't gotten a response yet, but I know they published the online comment form, which had like 28 responses. A lot of people didn't use that survey because they found it problematic, and I believe about 330 email comments were actually sent about the project. and that information is not reflected on the Streets of Baltimore site. And I just want to make sure that that feedback gets incorporated into the project design. Two other things quick. I didn't see Bush Street on the list, and I'm curious what happened with that. And then the 27th Street Bike Boulevard project, I just wanted to clarify. I mean, it goes from Sisson Street, all the way past Greenmount. The 28th Street project only goes to Maryland Avenue. And so we still need that connection to continue like the 27th Street project was going to do, whether that is along 28th Street or further or on 27th Street. That needs to happen, and we can't just like move on from that project.
Thank you for that comment.
Alan, I will just say that looking on the Streets of Baltimore site, the Sharp Street looks like the plan set, or rather the benchmark. Right now it says the DOT's preferred design is going to be presented by the end of fall. So we are in fall still. DOT has a little more time in order to meet their stated timeline, but we will certainly have Patrick check in on that.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that update.
Sure, and thank you, Sean. Alan, I'd actually like to take a moment to actually talk to the reason why the Otterbein Church was chosen. We were actually requested by Councilman Eric Costello to have the meeting at that church. And so he invited us there. His office coordinated the logistics for us to have the hybrid meeting. And so that's why we had the meeting at Otterbein Church. Like Sean stated, we still are under our project timeline to present within the fall season. The slowdown has just been additional support needed to revise the plans per the comments.
All right, so thank you for that. And we're going to close out Mr. Marker. I believe you were the last participant with your hand up, so I want to give you the opportunity to ask your question.
David McGill had to, I don't know if he left or he's just driving, so he asked me to ask, is there any update on the rapid enhancement project on the Monroe Street Bridge by Carroll Park? Is that still ongoing?
Patrick, are you able to speak to that? Or is that something we need to research?
I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I'll have to look into if that's even a rapid enhancement plan or if it's considered a longer term sort of project. And I also realized, Jed, I did not answer your question regarding Bush Street. That's just Bush Street is still on the docket. What you're witnessing again is a big old presentation with a lot of information and human beings making mistakes. Next time there will be an additional row for Bush Street. My apologies.
Great.
And we have time for one last question. Daniel Gatshaw.
Thank you. Sorry, I put this in the chat. Wasn't sure. It was easier that way. It's just asking specifically about Middle Branch Phase 2 and the connections basically between the Middle Branch and the Inner Harbor to see where those stand. Sorry if you had already mentioned that.
Regarding Middle Branch, we currently have 30% plans. So I do want to share that. What we need to do is, what we are doing actually, is in the process of putting together websites for Streets of Baltimore for both Middle Branch and the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Side Path. We recognize that while the two-tier selection process is long, in the meantime, we can still communicate that both projects do have awards and they both have 30% plans for people to review and ultimately provide interagency or even preliminary comments. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, that brings us to the end of this iteration of the Mayor's Bicycle Advisory Commission. I want to thank everybody for their time today. I appreciate the thoughtful questions. I appreciate the definitely detailed presentations, and our partners for sharing all the good things that are taking place. Patrick, is there anything else that you would like to add? You're currently on mute, I think. I see your lips moving, but there's no sound coming out, sir.
Listen, I'm tired.
Understood.
There's nothing else that I'd like to add. If anything, while we're online, what I will do is I'll edit this last slide to say that the next meeting will be January 31st. So let me just go ahead and do that right quick.
Awesome.
So for the record, January 31, 2024. Don't we love technology? The next meeting will be January 31st, 2024. We wish everyone a wonderful holiday. Thank you all for coming and providing your wonderful input. DOT and our agency partners with the mayor's office are doing our best to deliver bike projects as urgently as possible, but we also appreciate your empathy in helping us get there. Thank you.
So with that, I believe meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.